This podcast is brought to you by Cybernet, the security awareness training solution designed for schools. Developed with insights from IT directors in education, Cybernet shields your school from online threats, data breaches, phishing, and more. Trusted by schools and built by industry experts, Cybernet empowers your staff and students to stay secure online. Cybernet, your trusted partner in safeguarding the future.
Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the edtech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. Hey, welcome back to the Zero Breach Zone. We are glad to be back with you. Today, we have a very special guest, and we get a special opportunity to talk with people in the business, in the biz, if you call it. All right. I'm Phil Hintz. I'm one of your hosts, and next to me is
Andy Lombardo.
Hey, Andy, how are you?
Doing well, and yourself?
I am doing well as well. I got my special Zero Breach Zone shirt on today. I feel
Very nice.
Feel confident in our podcast production here, and I appreciate, actually, Andy is the creator of this shirt, so I appreciate it. It was a wonderful gift from him, and for whatever reason, he's not wearing his today, but hey, all right. He's dressed up because we have a very special guest. Andy, you want to introduce our special guest?
Yeah, so I'm excited today. We've been churning out some episodes of Zero Breach Zone over the past few months. And we had an alpha guest with Oliver from Cybernet to get us broken into that process of bringing someone on and asking questions and just getting started. And so today we're moving to our beta test guest, who is Yaw Osei, who is a director of technology and cybersecurity at Campbell ISD in Texas. And we start talking to Yaw here in a minute. You'll notice he has a very thick Texas accent. So, so I just want to start off, introduce you to Yaw, and how'd you get here? How'd you end up being a tech director at a school in Texas?
Well, I originally am from London, England. My story starts when I came over here to play college football. So I played at Baylor University for 3 years.
Baylor in Waco, right?
Yes, Sycamore Berries. And then I ended up transferring out and playing a couple years here at Texas A&M Commerce, which is about 7 minutes away from here, going towards, I would say, further east. And I played 2 years out there. I was a technology computer science major while playing college football. And then once I left, I decided that I wanted to work in the tech field and not really move out too far away. And then I saw that the job was available for the school district here in Campbell. And then, decided to engage, not realizing that education technology, and I always say to these people, education technology and technology are very different. They operate very differently. Yeah. It's technology, but it's technology with some added flavoring, some seasoning, i.e. kiddos and teachers. I'm an introvert tech nerd, as always. Many tech nerds can identify, but then when you're working in a school district, it doesn't really give you that opportunity to be there. You have to be a little bit more present. And to be honest, I think it's actually been a great experience for me because it's made me get out of my comfort zone pretty early and say, hey, you know what? There's going to be more skills apart from the ones and the zeros that you need to know. And that's actually going to be probably more useful to your job in many ways that you probably never thought of before. And so I'm actually really happy for the experience because I know a lot of people might be like, oh my gosh, you have to get to know people. This is completely, what I want to do. Once you get over that part, I think it's been one of the most rewarding jobs I've had. I can say that.
Is that kind of the position that you were expecting when you were going through college and getting your education? where you're like, I'm going to work in a school. I'm going to do technology. I'm going to deal with infrastructure. I'm going to deal with people. I'm going to deal with Chromebooks, laptops. Is that kind of what you were expecting, or did you have a different path into technology?
No, I totally thought it was gonna be like a Marvel villain. You
Like the
work in
Hulk.
technology, like the Hulk,
Yeah.
have that like maybe an Iron Man suit. I guess everybody, especially because my background in college was more software development, coding, and so forth. I think everybody has this kind of like big idea that you're gonna go and work for some coding company or that you're gonna do that, and then what you don't realize is after you leave, especially when you're trying to find your first job, you don't realize how much you don't know outside of college until you get outside of college. And then you realize I have no industry experience, especially me being a college football player. So a lot of my life was in school and football. I didn't really have much time for like internships and so forth. So I will say I didn't really expect to be in this role. However, what I would say to a lot of people, especially like a lot of people who are trying to go like software development, cybersecurity, and that and similar, if you actually do get the chance to be a techie in a school district, I would say take it because you are going to learn so much, and it's going to help you become more well-rounded in terms of like understanding how technology works, especially for cybersecurity. I feel like you have to have a great understanding of how things come together, because that's really where if you can be more well-versed than the criminals in that regard, you're actually you're actually able to get yourself well set up. Because when you start finding about cyber criminals, especially unless it's like a nation state attacker or someone who's really, I'm talking like in the weeds as being a cyber criminal, most of them are only really good at one tech stack. So then if you can like know multiple ways to protect your environment, then you're actually way ahead of the game. Obviously it becomes like someone who's really doing this for a day job or a nation state attacker. It's a little bit different because they are like, that's their day job. So you have to really be like, you have to really be in the weeds doing that. But if you're like well-versed in a lot of technology, I think working in schools, being a technology director, and that actually gives you the opportunity to do it, because now you have to get to know like different operating systems, different devices, the way that different devices operate. Obviously, know how networks operate, know how your network operates, know how other schools' networks operate. So then that way you can strengthen your own. It actually makes you more well-versed. And I think that you'll find that it sets you up better to be successful. And that anxiety that you get from, am I going to get cyber attack? It actually lessens, because then you realize like what you're dealing with. And also it just gets you prepared, because you understand that even if something bad does happen, I'll be prepared to deal with it when it does. And I think what we don't realize is how many resources are out there to actually help us, as opposed to you having to try to figure out everything on your own.
How long have you been in your role? Yeah.
Oh, I think this is year 5 going on 6. So about 6 years now. So
Do you have a big team, or what's your staff makeup, if I could ask?
this guy,
You are it.
yeah,
So
this
how
guy.
many students are in Campbell ISD?
We have about 274.
Okay.
And so we're a really small district, but at the same time, we have a lot of like technology innovation to where I believe, even though I'm a one-man show, this definitely would be an easier job if I could make maybe a couple more people working with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I've always loved and hated about working in educational technology is I love the fact that you can have your hands in so many different things, and there's not room to be
Yeah.
a specialist because you have to touch
Mhm.
so many different things, which I also hate because I love specializing, really knowing something inside and out, but there's so much to know. But you really get that good experience when you are the one-man show. I started as a one-man show, quickly added a technician, and we grew from there really quickly. But yeah, going from being the one person responsible, it is nice to have teammates.
Yes, 110%. Everybody said, "Hey, do you like being a one man show? Like, it's good job security." It's like, I will sacrifice job security for a teammate any
Yeah.
day, you know. So,
Right.
Have you ever brought on any students to maybe be summer helpers or summer interns or anything like that to help you?
yeah, so I had a few student interns who were kind of transitions to go to college. They wanted to learn because they wanted to go into to doing computer science at college. So they wanted to shadow, figure out a few things before they went out. So I had a few of them there. And then I also had a few student helpers who weren't so much trying to go into technology, but they were very technology curious. So I had them work with me for a couple of years. This year, we haven't had as much interest because we're a district that is, we train out a lot of ag students. So a lot of students that want to go and do agriculture, welding, and so forth. And anytime I get a text in, it'll be like few or far between where you'll get somebody who's interested in maybe doing computer science or even going to college post our school. But the ones that I did work with, they were absolutely awesome. I think the best thing about them is they weren't necessarily like technology savvy out the box, but they were very willing to learn. And I think that's pretty much the biggest thing. If you got like an appetite to learn, then you're pretty much going to do very well in this business.
Yeah. I did some consulting with a school district in Wisconsin. I'm Chicago based in Chicago, but I did some consulting with a school district in probably central Wisconsin, very much a farming community. And we were talking about coding and the importance of computer science as being part of their curriculum. And I got some looks like, when are we going to use this? But then as I started bringing more to their attention that, hey, look, farmers are using they're programming drones to go over the fields. And eventually the different farm machinery is actually so computerized that you just set it and it utilizes GPS to be able to do the farming that it does. That really, even in an ag community like you're talking about there is a need for computer science, because obviously innovation and technology is still happening even in the farming world. I wonder, are you encountering any of that in your area?
So what we have to kind of get to as a society, and I think this is less of a technology issue as more of a societal issue, is that changes and things are going to change. And the worst thing you can do is to try and keep things the way they were, knowing that things are inevitably becoming something different.
Yeah.
And I think what we've realized is that we've come from, we're living in almost like a fifth dimension of reality where the cyber world is now a part of life. So your digital identity is your identity, where we could almost compartmentalize and say, hey, I got my physical self and my digital self. It's actually becoming like where your physical self and your digital self are almost similar, with things like biometric MFA, everything like your whole life living on a chip and pin card, smartphones, the amount of stuff that like we do via computer. I would say to people, like, almost start getting into the process of saying that my life is going to be digital as well as it is going to be physical. And in saying that, start treating your digital life like your physical life. Start compartmentalizing. The more you compartmentalize, the harder it's going to be to make that transition, and the more vulnerable you are to like a lot of things that are out there. But if you start like protecting it, so almost like the same way that I deadbolt my door at my house when when I go to bed for the night, so the same thing for your digital life when you log off for the night. You know what I'm saying? Treat it the same. And then we can't start compartmentalizing and saying, oh, I'm never going to use this. That's a lie, because if you're living in this day and age, you're using it whether you think you're not, you know what I'm saying? Most of your processes and so forth. And so to say that I'm not tech savvy in this day and age is pretty much kind of setting yourself up for failure, because at the end of it, I want to say it's being tech savvy as opposed to being life savvy, because that's your life now. Your life is going to be cyber. So that's the way I try to explain it to people. And they look at me crazy, but then I think I eventually what they start to do is, as the wheels start turning, and they start thinking about the processes that they start doing in life in terms of self-checkout at Walmart and all that good stuff, they start realizing that I'm actually like probably onto something right here. And they probably need to start coming on board with that, because eventually what's going to happen is it might not necessarily be completely that way right now, but we're going to start seeing that it's going to start becoming like a majority of our life as we go along. So you need to start adopting it and start to build those new skills, because that's not going to even be a skill that you're going to need to learn to have a job. It's going to be a skill you're going to need to have to operate in life, period. You know what I'm saying?
To survive.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I spend a lot of time, I'm big on the identity side of security. I'm constantly going around talking about identity is the new perimeter and spouting all the zero touch and locking down identity and making sure that the identity is that core nugget that we're securing. But what you're adding is a great component of it. It's got the flip side on the user side too, that they need to lock down their identity for themselves personally. That's a great aspect, the other side to that coin.
Mhm. And that's why I tell people like all the time, it's just, you know, if we're coming into this day and age, especially into this modern era, and we're not like realizing that a lot of our identity is, a lot of our information is out there, or is easily accessible via technology, that's where we get susceptible to cybersecurity attacks. And I think a lot of people really don't think to themselves that cybersecurity attacks are less about the hacker being smart as opposed to us not being very secure. So I think it's a two-way street. We have to secure our lives, because I feel like a lot of people don't realize that stuff like having a secure password is actually probably 70% effective, considering whereas people are like, well, you know what, I don't forget. I'm gonna forget this password for this website, so I'm gonna have the same passwords. Do you have the same key for every door that you have in your life? Like your work key is not the same as your house key, so you have to kind of think about it the same way.
I love those analogies. From what I understand, that you are one of the first customers of Cybernut. And I'm very curious on your origin story, if you will, with Oliver Page. How'd you get in touch with him? How did he find you? Because I know Oliver's out in California and you're in Texas, and you became the pilot for his new idea of this training. But obviously, you talk about the importance of educating probably all of your staff to say cybersecurity. I love the fact that you're using analogies to help them understand that it's part of their real life. But obviously, having a tool like Cybernuts can go a long way, especially if you're a one-man show. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with Cybernut and some of the things that you've employed and where you see things are going.
It all started a long time ago, about maybe 5,000 years. Not joking. Was
Far away.
a galaxy far away. Now, I was actually one of Oliver's customers beforehand. We purchased a lot of the Nutcase products. And they're great cases that we've been using. And then Oliver, he reached out to me, and obviously we're talking about Nutcase, and then he was like saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a cybersecurity tool because I've seen a niche on the need for it in K-12, especially in the education side. And I want to do something different where instead of it being like a formal training, we gamify it to make it a little bit more engaging." And so I was like listening to him and saying, "Okay, that actually sounds like a pretty cool idea," because I've never ever heard of, any cybersecurity training being gamified. I think everybody tries to almost tick the box to say that we've done it, if we're to be honest. And so this kind of was like a little bit of something that piqued my interest. I was like, okay, I want to see where you're going with this. And so he asked me about what I'm, doing, seeing like a lot of the stuff that I post on LinkedIn and kind of stuff that I talk about in cybersecurity. So he wanted to pick my brain to see what my ideas were, how I'm employing it, like the things that probably might work, the things that probably wouldn't work. Because we sat down together and we really brainstormed, and I really just picked his brain and said, "Hey, these are the things that I've seen that kind of worked amongst my staff. These are things that I feel like could probably be a great idea. And these are some of the things that I feel like it sounds good in practice, but probably just let's probably put that to the wayside." And then really, I was actually impressed because usually when you hear people talking about that, it takes a long time for it to get into production. But Oliver was like at the gate running. I was like, oh, I'm impressed. He is serious. And that's when I got really interested because I was like, okay, I'm seeing his enthusiasm towards product. Obviously made me enthusiastic toward the product. And so it was great to see how it's, especially in the short amount of time, how it's almost evolved from what it was to what it is now. And the one thing I love about it is the fact that like our staff has made our staff competitive, where they are like looking at each other on the leaderboard and saying, "Yeah, I saw you number 2, but I'm number 1." I was like, "Oh, you know what? The gamifying aspect is great because I feel like it's taking something that can be very monotonous and something that can be it's not the most interesting thing, especially if you're not like inside. Obviously, I'm a cybersecurity techie, so it's interesting to me. I'm going to study all day, every day. But if you're like a teacher, you got like teaks and all that stuff that you're focusing on a day-to-day basis. We've got this extra piece of cybersecurity. I'm not trying to focus on that. Like tech guy, if we get hacked, he's going to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? But now we're getting them interested in the way that we're showing them that it's not just about hackers and viruses and so forth. It's about protecting your life. And I feel like Cybernet has done a great job of, number one, making people aware of the different vectors that hackers are trying to use, where they're trying to like basically playing human emotions. Like they're trying to get you to trust. And so I think that's the one key piece. And then also the fact that it's not trying to almost make you feel dumb. It's actually trying to reward you. It's actually trying to make you feel like, hey, like I'm actually getting smarter at doing this. And the Acorn system is great because it's when you've seen this instant gratification, because I don't care what anybody says. The older you get, because everybody says gratification for kiddos. No, it's not. The older you get told you're doing something right, you love it. And I think as adults, we try to be cool. Told this. You like being told you're doing something.
Give me the dopamine.
That part right there. So yeah, we all needed that dopamine rush. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Cybernet has done for our district in terms of turning into something that's really not the most interesting to many people and turning it into something interesting. And then I've evolved it into the next realm of a lot of the districts, especially in Texas, are being told that incident response is going to be a part of what we have to do for our safety and security plans. And so I'm using Cybernet in that regard as a incident response training tool, where it's, hey guys, I want you to report everything that you see as not suspicious using the squirrel icon. Obviously we're going to do for training, but let's go like a step further, because I want you to feel comfortable enough to, if something happened or if you clicked on something, to be able to tell me because the quicker you tell me, the quicker I can solve it and the quicker we can get the right people in. The more you don't, the more you keep silent on it, the more damage is being done. And the first part incident response is to tell me about the incident. So Cybernet has been a great segue tool to like take that legwork out of it, where people don't have to figure out like, how am I going to respond, or how am I going to notify somebody on an incident. I've got this squirrel icon right here that I can use immediately, and it will tell my tech director exactly what's going on in our environment.
Yeah, that's an evolution I've seen firsthand, because when I first implemented a phishing simulation product about 7 years ago in my district, we initially went with that kind of, it was more of a punitive program. If, you click, you get enrolled in training. So it seemed like no one was standing there saying, oh, you clicked, you're a bad teacher, you're endangering your students. But being enrolled in remediation does make you feel that way. And what we found is that when people would click on things that they shouldn't, they stopped reporting, they stopped telling us, and they would hide it. And we stopped the program, we gave it a year's break, and then rebooted it in a more positive way, just because those teachers are really that first line of defense. That people talk about how the person is that weak link in the chain, but they're also the strongest link in the chain. But yeah, hats off to you, because that's a great way to identify and a great way to leverage that, to look at that in a positive way.
Can I ask, how has your staff taken to it? They've been using it for quite some time now. Is it normal to them? Is it like, how have they been with receiving it?
To be honest, it was more positive than I expected, because obviously we are in a very rural district. Like, if you've been around rural people, they are stuck in their ways sometimes. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. It's just like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But so I was thinking that this is going to be a labor of love. But to be honest, they've been really good about, number one, anything that they see that's suspicious, they report it. I know people can say you can get like alert fatigue, but I say, look, I don't mind it, because at the end of the day, if it's keeping us safe, I want you to respond. I want you to like tell me about everything. When I'm looking at my inbox and I'm seeing the support emails coming through where people are saying, hey, this seems suspicious, or people are like correctly clicking on the trainings, it's great for me, because it means that, number one, they are taking it seriously to the point where I don't feel like it's just me alone having to protect the district. I know that people are out there with me, and they might not feel like they're doing much because they're teachers and they feel like, oh, I'm the tech guy and the smartest guy. But it's, no, you guys are doing a lot by doing this, and you don't know how much you're doing for the cybersecurity of our district by doing this for us. And then also, number two, it's just good because it just shows that tools like this actually are really useful and helpful about changing behaviors that a lot of tech directors might be like beating their head against the wall against, saying, how am I going to get my teachers to stop clicking on stuff? And it's like, the best way to do it is to get them into the process of training them. It's the same thing with anything like playing football. I didn't come out the womb knowing how to play football. I had to train myself to be able to get good to do that. And I think it's the same thing with everything that we do. We're always going to need the resources to be able to help us build those skills. And I think CyberNet is a great resource, especially for like small shows like mine, or ones where you have a lot of people that maybe are not quick to adopt new technologies and new behaviors. So that's where I've seen the biggest benefit.
Being a Monday morning quarterback, I'll use that as an analogy for you. What are some things that maybe you've given feedback to Oliver or to the CyberNet team that you'd like to see improved or changed now that you've been using it for a while? Maybe it's something we brought on CyberNet a couple of months ago. We are brand new to it. And maybe some of the things I'm seeing today were a result of some of the feedback you gave early on. So I'd be curious to know some of that, or some things that you see that you'd like to see now here in the future, maybe.
I guess I think really like an expansion in the knowledge that's out there. And I think going back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of us having technology as a part of our like actual lives, I feel it would benefit more to just upgrade the training or kind of start teaching the staff and maybe people who don't feel like they're as tech savvy about like ways to protect themselves outside of the district. Because I feel like sometimes you don't want to get people into the case of, hey, I'm just trying to do this to try and stay compliant. You want to say, hey, it's good for us. It's actually good for your actual life. And I think we could probably build a lot of behaviors that can actually translate into real world situations. Also, I feel probably like having CyberNet become an actual incident response tool, evolving the product to be more than training, because I feel like, especially in the cybersecurity world, what I'm seeing is like a lot of products can become very stale if it just has one niche, considering how much the landscape of cybersecurity breaches and so forth is evolving. And in the tech world, you're getting product fatigue because I feel like every other day you're seeing some new cybersecurity product that's coming out,
Especially with
and especially with AI.
Yeah.
And so I think showing that you're not this product that's going to stay in this one lane, and showing that, hey, we are trying to expand the horizons, whether it's being an incident response tool or maybe as well as doing simulations, helping with maybe email mitigation and so forth. But those are the places where I think that Cybernet could really find some success, because I feel like what happens is you don't really have a catch-all solution where it's a product that kind of does like many things. It either does one or other things, and then you find products that kind of try to swoop in under the radar and take that market. So I think Cybernet could probably do good in terms of going that route, in terms of expanding the repertoire of what they do. And it's not, and I say that there's not to say I'm grateful for what we have, because it's a great product and it's been great for us. But looking forward and saying, okay, like how can we keep this significant? That would be a great additions.
Okay. Very cool. So tell us about some of the things that moving away from the Cybernet, but some other things that you are working on that are big projects for you in a school district this year, and some of the things that you have your sights on in terms of maybe it's cybersecurity initiatives. It could be anything. What if you want to talk about AI? How's AI working in Campbell? I don't know, but tell us what you're working on right now that's bringing passion to you.
So I think for me, a lot of things, we've got a new building that's coming in. That's been one of the biggest projects that we have as a district on our plate. A lot of our resources, a lot of our mental energy and resources are going into kind of getting that ready, making sure that the network is up and running and ready. Then that way, once we get the ground running, we don't need to do much configuration and access. AI is a great tool. I'm more of an automation. Like I always say, there's difference. Artificial intelligence and automation. I'm more of an automation geek, because that's a little bit more useful in regards to what I do in my day-to-day than AI. In terms of AI, it's always hard because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation about AI, because a lot of people here ask me about that stuff and they're like, I don't want to use that AI nonsense. And I'm like, I mean, it can be very useful. It's the same thing as like having, obviously, and I say this in the most nicest way possible. It's almost like having a weapon. You know, it can be a weapon or it can be a tool. Like a knife can be a very good good cooking tool. It can be used to harm people, depending on who's using it and how they're using it. And I say it's the same with artificial intelligence. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just how you use it depends on how it will work for you. And so I'm trying to start with a small set of like early adopters, because I feel like the best way to bring things in, rather than trying to bring it in one fell swoop, is just bring in increments, find out like how people, if there's a use case for it with our teachers, because a small select group of teachers will be able to tell me like, okay, this was great for my lessons. This wasn't great for my lessons. I feel like the kids will benefit from this, or I feel the kids will cheat using this. And you get more information from them. That's going to be my next project, in terms of like having little support groups to test out those things, to see what they feel like. And then probably start to put more kind of content together for small districts that maybe don't have big tech teams. So then that way I can supplement them with information, so they can feel like they're empowered to be able to go out there and implement a lot of the things that I'm doing security-wise for their districts. Obviously not one size fits all, but they might be able to find some tidbits or some good information there that they can adapt to their different districts and departments. So then that way they can feel like they're advancing in those areas.
Are you a member of the Texas COSIN chapter? Are you familiar with that? I think it's
no.
TETL. It might be TETL, Texas Education Technology Leaders.
No, I've actually been seeing a lot of stuff about that, because I've been a big proponent of TCA. TETL's kind of come into my sphere of knowledge only recently. So I'm gonna try and get on with more people within TETL to see like how I can get involved and basically see how Campbell can come a part of it. And
I tell you, we're members here in Illinois. I'm on the board for our Illinois one, and it's been a big help. So I highly recommend it. That's a good way to get plugged in. It's a good way for you to stay on top of things and also commiserate. I always tell Andy, it's great to be able to talk to somebody about the things that are keeping us up at night, and to be able to talk to somebody else who totally gets it, who totally understands where you're coming from, because it's probably keeping them up at night too. But yeah, get plugged in if you can over there. I could probably help with some folks. I know some folks in Texas that do that. I could maybe make some connections for you. But it's been great to hear from you and to learn from you. I can't wait to meet you in person in real life down the road here. I'm sure we'll get a chance to do that down the road, but we appreciate you being an awesome guest. And I was fully expecting that Texas accent to come through, but I did not hear. I did not hear that.
Sorry, I catfished you on that one a little bit.
Yes, you
Hey,
did.
it's from West Texas. It's from Odessa.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, West Texas. Got it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Andy, do you want to part us with anything? We always put a parting tip, and you got a 1 minute parting tip because we're almost.
I do. I've got a quick one. Oh, let's see. There we go.
All right.
Here we go. Okay. I talk a lot about identity and email and those kinds of things. Let's see. Screen. Okay.
There it is.
So
Yeah.
there's a tool. It's just real quick, real easy. It's called aboutmy.email. And what it does is to give you some diagnostic information on your email setup and configuration. And what we're going to do real quick is I'm just going to send an email. This address changed while we were waiting, so take just a second. I'm just going to send it an email that gives you a one-time use address, basically. And I'll send this off real quick. And so it's a message from my iCloud. It's a junk mail message that I got just so that it's got some content in it. And it's going to wait and process that email. And what we're going to see is it's going to, all that SMTP server communication back and forth, we're going to see that. It's going to process that. And so we can see those hellos and responses that are happening. And then there's some additional configuration details we can see. Yep. And so it's scanning all the links and images that are in the email. It's going to tell you if it's what the SPF, the DKIM, the DMARC, how it's configured, whether it complies with the Yahoo and Google mass mail sender settings. You can look at some really granular stuff like the links, where you can see any links that were in the message. You can see the...
Is that like embedded links
Yes.
that you don't necessarily see in the background?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So any hyperlink that's in the message, it's going to pull
Yeah.
out any images that are in the message, just tons of stuff. And I only found this earlier this week when troubleshooting a problem, and I've been using it like crazy. Still learning it, but super, super valuable, and has been very handy. Free, totally free. So don't even have to sign up or create an account. It's there, and you can use
Free
it.
99.
Free 99.
Hey, that's
Free.
always a selling point. I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you for sharing that again.
Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Yaw,
now-
for being our guest once again. And we appreciate your time. And like I said, I look forward to meeting you in real life, which I know we'll be able to do down in the future here pretty soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our latest episode of the Zero Breach podcast, where we always strive to give you the tools that you need to make yourself a zero
breach zone.
Yeah. Thank you. All right.
We've been
Have a good
practicing
day.
that.
Yeah, that's right. We're working on it. Work in progress. All right. Have a good week, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, Cybernut AI, for making this podcast possible. Cybernut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how Cybernut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
Zero
breach
zone.